A man went to the supermarket to buy some meat, but the butcher refused to serve him and insisted that he should leave immediately. Despite the man's unwillingness to leave, the butcher wiped his hands with his apron, stepped out from behind the counter, and got a few people to remove the man from the store. The man tried to stand up for his rights, but he was severely beaten and then kicked out of the supermarket like trash. Not satisfied, some people even hit the man on the head with cans. Although bleeding from his injuries, the man refused to back down. Limping, he returned to the supermarket and confronted the butcher, ending up winning the fight. Finally, he managed to buy what he wanted. After paying, he limped out of the supermarket with his purchases. All this chaos originated from a little girl's lie. A few days earlier, while the man was pretending to be dead with his eyes shut, the little girl quickly leaned in and kissed him. Realizing what happened, the man immediately pushed her away. Later on, the man tried to educate her about the differences between males and females and explained that kisses should only occur between her and her parents. Feeling rejected and humiliated, the girl decided to get revenge on the man after school. She told the school principal that the man had shown her his little stick, emphasizing that it was hard and long like a wooden stick. What she didn't realize was that her small lie would have a devastating impact on the man's life. Lucas lived in a small town in Denmark where everyone knew each other, and the sense of community was strong. The men from the town often gathered to go hunting and enjoy outdoor activities together. Lucas worked as a teacher at the local kindergarten, and because he got along so well with his young students, they loved having him as their teacher. One day, Lucas found one of his students, Clara, standing alone in a street after he left the supermarket. When he asked her why she was there, she explained that she had lost her way home while playing outside. Lucas, understanding that she was lost, kindly offered to walk her home. Clara's father, Theo, and Lucas had been friends since childhood, and they were very close. Concerned for his friend, Theo asked Lucas about his relationship with his wife. Lucas lied, saying that it was fine, but Theo could immediately tell that this wasn't true. Over the many years they had known each other, Theo had become adept at knowing when Lucas was lying just by reading his facial expressions. He knew that Lucas had recently gone through a divorce and that his son was now living with Lucas's ex-wife. With Christmas around the corner, Lucas was particularly hopeful that his son would come to stay with him. When it came to Clara's having lost her way and needed to be walked home, Theo didn't coddle her. Instead, he sent her to her room for self-reflection, indicating that this wasn't the first time she had purposefully gotten lost. Perhaps this was Clara's way of seeking attention from her parents. The following day, Lucas encountered Clara sitting at the front door while her parents were arguing inside about who would take her to school. Clearly distressed by her parents' constant quarreling, Clara didn't understand why they could never seem to get along. Lucas managed to call Theo to notify him about the situation before leading Clara on the path to school. Along the way, she instinctively took hold of Lucas's hand. At first, Lucas felt surprised and instinctively looked around. He was always friendly and playful with the boys at kindergarten, but he always kept a certain distance when it came to girls. Seeing how affectionate Lucas was towards her, Clara decided to give him a heart wrapped in paper as a token of her affection. She watched him as he played and laughed with the boys, and her heart filled with a genuine smile. In her eyes, Lucas resembles the father figure she always longed for. As Lucas closed his eyes pretending to be dead, Clara quickly ran towards him, leading to the occurrence mentioned earlier. When Lucas realized what she was trying to do, he quickly pushed her away and educated her that kisses should only be shared with her parents. Having her affections rejected, Clara felt she was insulted. Her face instantly turned unhappy. Even though Lucas noticed Clara's unhappy state, he didn't dwell on it. One day, her parents failed to pick her up from school on time. Sitting in a dark corner of the office, Clara decided to speak ill of Lucas out of revenge, falsely claiming that he had shown her his private part, describing it to be hard, long, and similar to a small wooden stick. The reason Clara could describe in such detail was that she had seen inappropriate videos watched by the boys and heard them talking about the appearance of male privates. In an attempt to lend credibility to her claims, Clara presented the heart that she had made for Lucas, explaining that it was a token of affection Lucas had given her. The principal was shocked by these allegations, yet she chose to believe Clara. After all, why would a 5-year-old girl lie? After sending Clara home, the principal remained in deep thought, holding the love heart Clara had shown her. The next Saturday, Lucas, without any inkling of what had transpired, went hunting in the forest. His sharp shooting skills allowed him to take down a large deer swiftly. That night, a group of townfolks gathered to enjoy the fresh bounty. After dropping off Theo at his home post-celebration, Lucas called Naga, his female colleague from the kindergarten. Naga was new to her role and was also single. The two of them had been attracted to each other since their first meeting and shared a sleepless night together. They thought a happy life was about to start as they walked hand in hand to work. But what was about to transpire would turn Lucas's world upside down. Not 2 minutes into his playtime with the children, the principal summoned him to her office, looking very concerned. The principal's words were vague. She asked Lucas if he had done anything inappropriate with any of the children but didn't mention which child it was. Despite Lucas's vehement denial, he was left confused by the questioning. To better understand and investigate the situation, the principal asked Lucas to take a few days off. After all, such accusations would be incredibly serious for a kindergarten. An investigation had to be thorough and conclusive. In an attempt to gain more insight, the principal also involved a child psychologist to encourage Clara to retell her experiences. However, Clara seemed to be realizing the gravity of her false allegations. When confronted by two serious adults, Clara completely denied her previous statement, expressing her desire to go out and play with her friends instead. The principal, thinking Clara might be scared, reassured her that it was okay to speak freely and that they would protect her. At this point, the psychologist's questions began to carry a hint of leading and suggestive nature. Perhaps in her eagerness to end the conversation and go play, Clara agreed to everything the psychologist asked her, confirming an event that never happened. In the end, the expert suggested turning the matter over to the police and notifying all parents of the children. That night, the principal called in Clara's mother. Very gently, she was told, "It is possible that your daughter has been violated, and the person responsible is someone you know well." However, the principal did not specify who it was. At the parental meeting in the kindergarten the next day, the principal announced this incident, suggesting there may be more than one victim. She advised parents to observe their children for any unusual signs, such as bedwetting, headaches, or nightmares. Although no names were mentioned, the principal insisted that this was a serious matter that all families should take note of, while also reassuring parents not to raise public panic yet. However, in such a small town, explosive news travels fast. Coupled with the fact that Lucas had been asked to take a leave of absence, the rumors spread like wildfire in less than half a day. Any child's ailment or temper tantrum was now attributed to possible violation, casting Lucas as the town's deviant. As they say, bad news travels fast. By the evening, even Lucas's ex-wife and son, Marcus, knew about the incident. Marcus, sobbing over the phone, told Lucas that his mother had asked him to cut off all contact with Lucas. It was then that Lucas fully realized the severity of the situation. When he shared the news with Naga, she laughed it off, believing it to be mere children's talk. Who would take it seriously? However, things began to spiral out of control. To prove his innocence, Lucas headed to the kindergarten early the next day. The moment he walked into the principal's office, everyone started staring at him strangely. The principal, in her panic, fled her office, cursing Lucas as she went. Unable to contain his frustration, Lucas confronted her. "You said you would investigate. Is this how you handle things? What exactly did I do wrong?" The principal, equally enraged, countered. "You didn't even spare a little girl like Clara. Are you even human?" Lucas tried to understand what Clara had said, but he was thrown out of the kindergarten by a group of men, with a stern warning to stay away from the children. Lucas was completely perplexed. He had always been kind to Clara and could not understand why she would make such unfounded accusations against him. In an attempt to understand the truth, Lucas visited Clara's home to confront her directly. Theo, who had been Lucas's best friend, courteously welcomed him inside. Even though Theo believed Lucas was innocent, he also believed that his 5-year-old daughter would not lie. As he grappled with this dilemma, his wife caught sight of Lucas in their living room and exploded in anger. She ordered Lucas to leave immediately and threatened that if she ever saw him again, she would personally castrate him. Lucas, not wishing to argue, tried to leave. However, Theo, fueled by his wife's anger, lost his temper, grabbed Lucas by the collar, and pinned him against the wall, threatening to shoot him if he had indeed hurt his daughter. Hearing the commotion, Clara came out to see what was happening. Lucas merely greeted her briefly. He realized there was no point in reasoning with Theo in his current state, and reluctantly decided to leave. Witnessing the magnitude of her parents' anger, Clara finally understood the severity of the situation. She tried to tell her parents the truth. Lucas didn't do anything. It was me saying nonsense. However, her mother perceived this as a stress reaction, thinking her daughter was in a state of mental confusion due to the trauma she had supposedly endured. Clara didn't know how to resolve the situation. Meanwhile, the principal informed Naga about Lucas's predicament in front of all her colleagues and advised her to stay away from Lucas, who she described as a deviant and a terrible person. Naga, of course, didn't believe them. She knew very well that Lucas never touched the girls in the kindergarten. Also, in the several days that they had spent together, she hadn't noticed any odd behavior from him. As Lucas was contemplating how to explain the situation to his ex-wife, Clara came knocking at his door, wanting to take Lucas's pet dog out to play. Lucas cautiously scanned his surroundings and reminded her that she needed parental permission to visit his place. When Lucas asked Clara if he had ever done anything wrong to her, Clara answered, "I don't know. I can't remember. There were others as well." It seemed Clara could have been violated by others, and for some reason, either forgetfulness or fear, she had associated the incident with Lucas. Lucas wanted to find out who these others Clara mentioned were and reached out to take her hand, but she instinctively recoiled in fear, crying and saying she was scared. Lucas decided against letting her take the dog out for a walk and suggested that she should quickly go home. Naga witnessed the entire scene unfolding at the door. Seeing Clara's frightened appearance, she began to harbor doubts in her heart, which added insult to Lucas's injury. Even you don't believe me!" Lucas lashed out in anger and ejected Naga from his room. Suddenly, the day turned snowy, and Clara, excited by the sudden change of weather, dashed out to play in the yard, twirling and jumping in delight. After all, no matter how significant an issue seems, it is often temporary from a child's perspective. She had already completely forgotten about the incident with Lucas. Meanwhile, Lucas, now wrongfully accused, spent his days gloomily at home. Clothing lay strewn around his room and dishes piled high in his kitchen, all reflecting his current state of despair. Every little noise from outside sent him into a state of high alert, fearing an attack from the townsfolk. However, it was his son, Marcus, who braved the snow to visit him. Contrary to the pervasive rumors around town, Marcus believed unquestionably in his father's innocence. With his mother's permission, he skipped school and rushed over to lend his support during this dark phase, deciding to stand by his father. Soon after, Marcus's godfather also arrived. Likewise, he chose to stand by Lucas, firmly convinced of his innocence. Even though the police had intervened and initiated an investigation, there hadn't been any updates so far. Marcus's godfather, gripping Lucas's hand, encouraged him to hang in there. He promised that the truth would be revealed eventually. When Marcus went shopping in the supermarket, he was asked not to visit them again. Despite feeling angry, Marcus chose to let it pass. However, on returning home, he found 2 policemen escorting his father away. There was no time for excessive conversation before the police had Lucas in their car. In his urgency, Lucas had forgotten to leave the house keys with his son. The keys, usually hidden under their doormat, had been removed for safekeeping ever since the townsfolk started suspecting Lucas. Since they were on good terms with Theo's family, both families had a copy of each other's spare keys. Marcus visited Theo's house to collect the spare key. Upon hearing Lucas's situation, Theo kindly invited Marcus in. Marcus asked Theo to help his father, but was told that he didn't need to take responsibility for his father's mistakes. Undeterred in his belief in his father's innocence, Marcus confronted Clara. "Why are you lying? Why did you frame my father?" he demanded. In the ensuing argument, an enraged Marcus spat at Clara. As the others tried to forcibly eject him from the room, a heated and overambitious Marcus resorted to physical confrontation. Standing up against an adult was like throwing an egg against a rock for a young boy like Marcus. The result was a beating from the other party. Fortunately, Theo stepped forward in time to stop them. He advised Marcus to leave immediately and never return, at which Marcus could only vent his anger by shouting incessantly. With nowhere to turn to, Marcus went to his godfather's place. They began discussing Lucas's case. After the police's investigation, a bizarre contradiction came to light. The kids who claimed to have been deceived by Lucas into going to his basement had given vivid descriptions of it, down to the wall color and sofa placement. However, when the police searched Lucas's house, they found that it didn't have a basement, which indicated all the kids had been making up stories. This piece of evidence was sufficient to exonerate Lucas. That evening, Marcus noticed a photo on the wall showing his father as a young man with a group of friends. They used to share a close-knit bond, which had now turned adversarial due to a child's lie. The next day, Marcus's godfather shared some excellent news. Lucas had been acquitted in court and was on his way over. Marcus, gleeful at this development, rushed downstairs early to greet his father, who had finally cleared his name. The father and son embraced emotionally, with a massive weight lifted off their hearts. Back home, standing at his doorstep, Lucas thought life would get back on track. However, he was yet to understand that human nature is not as straightforward as he perceived. Later the same night, father and son were having a heartwarming conversation about the future when suddenly, a large stone came flying through the window. Startled, they quickly ducked under cover. Lucas, telling his son to stay put, grabbed a baseball bat and dashed out of the room. To his surprise, nobody was on site, except for a black plastic bag lying on the ground. Lucas stepped cautiously forward to inspect and was horrified to find the body of their pet dog inside. The dog had been with them for over a decade, holding immense sentimental value. Seeing this, Marcus lost control of his emotions and, picking up a steel rod, vowed vengeance for their pet. However, he didn't have any clue about the perpetrator. Afraid that his young son might commit regrettable actions, Lucas sent him back to his ex-wife's place. In the heavy rain, a grieving Lucas dug a pit in the backyard and buried his faithful companion who had been with him for over a decade. On Christmas Eve, Lucas went to the supermarket to shop for holiday items. That's when the incident at the beginning occurred. He wanted to buy some meat, but the supermarket's butcher not only refused to sell it to him, but also beat him severely before being thrown out of the store by the crowd. Although the law had acquitted Lucas, society refused to let him be. Unyielding, Lucas challenged the butcher, managing to purchase his items after a fierce confrontation. As he left the supermarket, Theo's family happened to witness the scene. Clara, puzzled, asked why she hadn't seen his dog. Unbeknownst to her, the dog had already succumbed to her lies. Theo wanted to step in and help, but his wife stopped him. Through his daughter's admission, the police's evidence, and the look in Lucas's eyes when he confronted him, Theo already knew Lucas hadn't done anything wrong. However, he felt trapped, drawn into the maelstrom of humanity, spurred by the agitators around him. Lucas sat in the dark, feeling desolate. As per the town's custom, everyone went to the church to sing hymns and attend the Mass on Christmas Eve. After considerable thought, Lucas decided he would attend too. Staying away would only infer guilt. He had to attend to prove his innocence. He began by washing blood off his face, putting on a suit, and strapping on leather shoes. To embolden himself, he took a swig of alcohol before limping his way into the church. He didn't waver at the curious gazes but marched straight through the crowd, found an empty seat, and sat down. His presence startled everyone. When the prayer began, Lucas turned around and fixed his gaze onto Theo, who didn't look away. However, a flash of surprise crossed Theo's face. In the beginning of the movie, Theo had confidently claimed that he could easily tell when Lucas was lying. But this time, he didn't catch Lucas's usual telltale signs of dishonesty. He then turned to his wife and said, "I saw something in Lucas's eyes." The part where the children sing hymns came next, and Clara was part of the choir. She paused when she saw Lucas in the audience. Amidst the choruses of Hallelujah, Lucas couldn't hold back anymore. All the injustices he'd endured recently came pouring out. He started vehemently banging his fist against the table to vent his frustration. He later stormed over to Theo and his wife, who were whispering to each other. Enraged, Lucas threw a Bible at Theo, demanding loudly, "Isn't there something you want to say to me?" This left everyone in the vicinity, including Clara on stage, utterly stunned. Lucas's fury escalated and he began hitting Theo, who, aware of his fault, didn't retaliate or even try to dodge. He simply let his old friend vent his emotions. Lucas forced Theo to look directly into his eyes, challenging him. "What can you see in my eyes?" In the end, an emotional Lucas was escorted out. Theo, however, remained frozen in his seat, for he saw disappointment, helplessness, and grievance in Lucas's eyes. Back at home, a pensive Theo lit a cigarette in the hallway. Clara, asleep in the bed, hazily saw Lucas's dog. Hearing her speak, Theo came to check. Seeing a shadow at the door, Clara believed it was Lucas. "Hello, Lucas. All of this wasn't supposed to happen," she mumbled. At this moment, Theo finally realized that he had wronged his friend for years. Sitting by his daughter's bed, he broke down in tears. Before long, Clara woke up from her stupor. Seeing her father crying by her bed and hearing him say that Lucas was his best friend, she finally told the truth once again.
Det var bare mig, der sagde noget dumt noget. Han har ikke gjort noget.
Theo nodded, indicating that he understood. After Clara fell asleep, Theo gathered some food and fine liquor. Despite his wife's advice against it, he was determined to apologize to Lucas. He ignored her words and walked into Lucas's house with the food. Initially, Lucas was reluctant to accept anything from Theo. Even after eating the food brought by his friend, he asked him to leave. However, African Transparency initiating the not-so-fierce request, Theo didn't leave. The two old friends reconciled in silence. As golden leaves carpeted the ground once more, a year had passed since the accusation. Lucas joined the community again. Everyone greeted him warmly and hugged him. It seemed as though everything had returned to the way it was before. However, upon reaching the gathering, Lucas realized something was off. The deep hostility in the crowd's eyes persisted. Some even scurried away at the sight of him. At the gathering, Lucas's godfather presented a gun to Marcus, congratulating him on getting a hunting license. This was their town's coming-of-age ritual. It signified that Marcus had transitioned from being a boy to a man. After the meeting, Lucas spotted Clara standing quietly at the doorway. She looked lost, hesitating to step onto the tiled floor. Without a moment's hesitation, Lucas bent down, picked up Clara, and carried her to her parents. He chose to confront Clara bravely, believing in his own innocence. Not long after, Lucas took his son, Marcus, on his first hunt. Marcus, participating in such an activity for the first time, was very excited. Seeing a hunter whistle at them from the foothills, Marcus thoughtlessly whistled back, scaring away the prey. Lucas told him to stay put while he went to assess the situation. At this moment, a deer appeared on the slope not far away. Lucas slowly moved towards it. Just as he was fully focused on his prey, he heard a gunshot. Startled, Lucas instantly crouched, the bullet striking a large tree next to him. It was clear the shot was aimed at him. Lucas sat stunned, looking in the direction of the gunshot. Because he was facing the light, all he could make out was a blurred figure. He couldn't identify who it was. The unseen figure reloaded, aimed, and prepared to fire. Lucas, completely unarmed, could only wait silently for the judgment of fate. However, in the nick of time, the figure turned and walked away, leaving a shell-shocked Lucas panting heavily on the spot. Lucas had always seen himself as a sharp-eyed hunter, It was only now he realized that he was the real prey. The Hunt is a Danish drama film released in 2012, directed by Thomas Vinterberg and starring Mads Mikkelsen and Thomas Bo Larsen. The film has many aspects worth discussing. First of all, why did Clara lie? The main reason could be the lack of parental care. Her parents often fought in front of her and didn't pay attention even when she was lost. As such, she grew fond of Lucas, appreciating his kindness. However, Lucas treated all children equally. This made Clara harbor resentment towards him out of unrequited affection. As she realized the gravity of her actions, Clara tried several times to tell the truth. But her words were ignored by both the psychologists and her parents. As for who fired the shot in the end, the director didn't specify. It could have been Clara's brother, who wanted revenge for his sister, or it could have been any of the townsfolk who believed themselves to be on the moral high ground. Despite its title, The Hunt, the film doesn't focus heavily on actual hunting scenes. This is because it's about a hunt of human nature, with Lucas being the unfortunate prey. A society with order allowed a lie to spread uncontrollably, a damage more profound than any gunshot as it caused internal torture. In today's world, where information is rampant on the internet, some people begin to criticize others based on a few lines of text. Unable to distinguish right from wrong, black from white, it's essential for us all to stay alert and not become a mindless hunter. Because one day, the tables might turn, and we could become the prey. Slanderous words are more lethal than any hidden weapon, as they strike the heart directly. There isn't necessarily a lot of malice in the world. If we support each other, malice will naturally retreat.